This line is tapped, so I must be brief.
When The Matrix was released in 1999, it didn't just change action movies or pop culture. It changed the way people thought about reality. It was called ahead of its time, and in many ways it was. Its groundbreaking special effects redefined action. Its vision of a future shaped by AI felt eerily possible. And its questions about control and perception stuck with people long after the credits rolled.
He's beginning to believe.
But as time goes on, something else becomes clearer. The Matrix was only about the future on the surface. Beneath that, it's a movie about humanity's eternal struggle, with its own creations, with the systems that shape our lives, with the invisible limits we place on ourselves, and with the quiet war between what we're told to be and what we might become. This isn't about the machines, it's about the mind. Because what really traps us isn't technology, it's our beliefs. Sure, the Matrix touches on AI and control, but that's not what this is really about. On the surface, the Matrix is a story about escaping a simulated world, but if we dig deeper, it's about escaping the self-imposed limits we carry within us. The fear, the doubt, the disbelief. That's the real reason the film still matters today and why it might matter even more in the years to come. It's not about technology, it's about the invisible code running in our minds and the choice to rewrite it.
From the moment I saw it in the cinema in June 1999, I knew that The Matrix was a documentary. I knew that as well as telling a thrilling sci-fi version of the classic hero's journey narrative, The Matrix was actually revealing the nature of the modern world. I knew it was saying that the human race lives in a false reality. I knew it was saying that the human race was enslaved by that false reality. And I knew it was saying that the Matrix of the film existed in the real world.
How could you be so sure?
3 years later, during my awakening experience living under a tree in a park, I realized what the real world Matrix is. It is the reality we create unconsciously using the mirror principle with our limiting beliefs and false thinking about who we really are, where we really are, and why we are really here.
Please! Please! No!
Yes!
Individually speaking, your limiting beliefs and false thinking create the matrix of your life.
Oh, shit.
The more inner peace, natural joy, love and fulfillment you experience in your life, the more your beliefs and thinking about who you are, where you are, and why you're here conform to the truth of ultimate reality.
This pleases me.
The more you experience disturbance, doubt, anxiety, insecurity, conflict, guilt, shame, unworthiness, dissatisfaction, and unfulfillment, the less your beliefs and thinking about who you are, where you are, and why you're here conform to ultimate reality.
Are you placing judgment on my life choices?
Yes!
Just as the Matrix tried to teach us.
Right from the start, we're shown that this world has rules, but not everybody is bound by them. Some, like Trinity, can bend them. Others can't. And those who enforce the rules, the agents, are terrifying not just in power, but in what they represent. Total control. Then we meet Neo. He's already looking for something. He's disillusioned, disconnected. He knows something is wrong with the world, but he can't really explain it. He lives in apartment 101, binary code. He is a programmed identity. But there is tension in that number too. Is he a 0 or is he the 1? This conflict between his programmed self and his potential self is already there even before he meets Morpheus. Even the dialogue and visuals hint at a deeper truth.
My own personal Jesus Christ.
And whether intentional or not, Room 101 is also the torture chamber in George Orwell's 1984, where people are forced to confront their deepest fears. This parallel might be a reach, but it fits because for Neo, the apartment represents quiet psychological suffering. He's stuck living a life that doesn't feel real, haunted by the sense that something is deeply wrong. We get to see more of Neo's situation in the scene where he goes to work. His boss lectures him with the kind of language that reveals exactly what the Matrix demands: obedience without question.
This company is one of the top software companies in the world because every single employee understands that they are part of a whole. Thus, if an employee has a problem, the company has a problem.
These aren't just corporate lines, they are the voice of the system, reminding Neo of his place. The message is clear: individuality is a threat. Questioning the rules makes you the problem. And the boss doesn't just sound like the system, by the way, he sounds like an agent. Along with Agent Smith, he's the only person in the film who calls Neo
Mr. Anderson.
Visually, this scene makes the same point. As Neo speaks with his boss, a window cleaner wipes away the dirt. The image shifts from blurred to clear. Neo is beginning to see, just barely, through the illusion. He's still not fully awake, but he's beginning to open his eyes. The agents are all about control, and control depends on keeping up appearances. So when Neo is captured, Smith opens a file he clearly already knows by heart, so it's pure theatrics, a way to maintain the illusion that this is a normal interrogation. But when Neo asks for his phone call, the tone shifts. A phone call, after all, represents the only way to get out of the Matrix. The response is immediate and brutal. They seal his mouth. The message is clear. Even the idea of escape is a threat to the system. Even the outfits reinforce the divide. The agents wear identical suits, clean, corporate, mechanical. There's no room for individuality. They are the system. In contrast, Neo, Morpheus, and Trinity wear outfits that are sleek, unique, and distinctly their own. Yes, they look cool, but it goes beyond aesthetics. Their style is rebellion, a visual rejection of conformity and control. Another visual cue comes in the next scene inside the car with Trinity, APOC, and Switch, where the rain on the window even looks like Matrix code, quietly reminding us that we're still trapped inside the illusion. But the real power of this scene isn't just visual, it's emotional.
You have been down there, Neo. You know that road. You know exactly where it ends. And I know that's not where you want to be.
It's a perfect line for anyone trying to leave something behind. A job they hate, a toxic relationship, an addiction, a version of themselves they've outgrown. That's the hidden beauty of this scene. The Matrix isn't just a prison for the mind, it's a metaphor for every loop we're afraid to break, even when we know exactly where it leads.
At last.
When Neo meets Morpheus, it's the moment where Neo's internal conflict is put into words. It feels more than just a scene, it feels like a conversation many of us have had in our own heads at some point or another.
Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No,
Why not?
because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
Neo still thinks of control as something external, something to hold on to. He hasn't realized yet that real control begins with letting go. At this point, he's still plugged into the system and he's still reacting to a world he doesn't understand. Morpheus, named after the Greek god of dreams, is here to wake him up. It's not just about waking up from the Matrix, it's about waking up from whatever reality we've accepted as truth. The Matrix also doesn't get enough credit for how horrifying some of its scenes are, like when Neo wakes up in the real world. It's a twisted kind of rebirth. He emerges from a pod covered in fluid, his body weak and disoriented. It's birth without warmth or comfort, just machinery and cold metal. It's straight up sci-fi horror, and once he's awake, he's discarded. An awakened mind is no longer useful to the system. On the ship, Neo asks,
Why my eyes, sir?
You've never used them before.
It sounds kind of obvious, but it's more than just a physical statement. Neo is confronting the world without filters for the first time. No illusions, no comfort, just the truth. The colors of these two worlds also tell a story. The Matrix has a green tint, which mimics the color of old monochrome monitors, tying the illusion to digital systems and code. It's a visual cue to remind us we are inside a computer program. But on the other hand, the real world is cold and metallic, stripped of comfort and color. Truth in this story isn't warm, it isn't easy, yet it's real, and that alone makes it worth chasing. Neo learns that the Matrix is not only code, but control. A world pulled over our eyes to blind us from the truth. That humans are being used. The machines harvest people for energy, but the metaphor is clear. Unconscious minds are useful to systems of power. As long as we stay asleep, we serve their purpose. Morpheus tells Neo about a man born inside the Matrix, someone who could reshape it at will, who freed the first of them, and who would one day return to end the war. He frames it as prophecy, speaking of a chosen one. Whether or not you read that as religious subtext, the message is clear. Belief is what breaks the system. The people searching for the one aren't just looking for a person, they are holding on to the idea that freedom is still possible in this world.
I know Kung Fu.
The training scenes are where the film's core idea finally comes into focus. The Matrix isn't real, but
Your mind makes it real.
at this point in the story, Neo is going through the motions, but he's still thinking like a prisoner, still believing the limits. That he gets tired while Morpheus doesn't, that he sweats, gasps for air. That's not the Matrix, it's his own limiting beliefs. The rules, after all, are just code. But first, Neo has to believe that's possible. Of course, these aren't just martial arts lessons, they're the beginnings of a new mindset, one where belief determines possibility. The film invites us to ask the same question. What would your life look like if you let go of fear, doubt, and disbelief? This scene is more than just exposition, it's a test. As Morpheus continues to explain what the Matrix is, Neo is distracted by a woman in red, only to find a gun pointed at his head when he turns back. It's a setup with a clear message. Distraction is dangerous, especially when you're trying to wake up. The woman in red could symbolize lust, sure, but more broadly, she's any temptation that pulls your mind off the path. Social media, comfort, ego, fear, lust. The Matrix will use anything to keep you from seeing clearly and focusing on the path. This moment distills something critical. You can't just wake up. You have to stay awake. You have to stay focused. Because the system is always watching for the moment your guard drops. Cypher is one of the most important characters in the movie, not because he's evil, but because he's deeply human. He's tired, he's disappointed, he misses pleasure and normalcy. And even when he says,
"Ignorance is bliss,"
you can't really disagree with him. That's precisely what makes him dangerous and very relatable. He knows the stake isn't real, yet he doesn't care. He'd rather live a lie and be happy than to suffer through a difficult truth. And in that way, he's perhaps the most human character in the entire film. That's what makes him a perfect antagonist in the movie because of the contrast with the other crew members, but particularly with Neo. Neo chooses to wake up, Cypher chooses to forget. Neo walks the hard path while Cypher turns back. And this contrast between choosing truth or choosing comfort is the real battle at the heart of the Matrix. The scene that follows Cypher's deal with Smith is striking. The crew sits around eating a bland, unappetizing breakfast. It's an immediate and necessary stark contrast to the rich, delicious experience of the steak, and that's precisely the point. The truth doesn't always taste good.
There is no spoon.
The child doesn't explain the Matrix, he explains how to thrive within it. You can't change the world directly, but if you change your mind, the world reacts to it. What we perceive as reality is often just a reflection of our internal programming. That idea carries straight into Neo's meeting with the Oracle. She doesn't give him answers, she gives him what he needs to hear.
Try not to think of it in terms of right and wrong.
When she tells Neo about the vase, Neo believes he isn't the one because the Oracle lets him believe that. But that belief, or lack of belief, is exactly what allows him to take the path. And of course, that's exactly what happens. Neo has to die, both literally and metaphorically, to let go of his older self, before he can finally become the one. The Oracle didn't necessarily lie to him, she just planted the seed. The illusion begins to crack when Neo sees a black cat walk by twice. It's a small, eerie moment, but one that reveals just how fragile the illusion really is. One small shift in perception and the truth bleeds through. As they try to escape, Morpheus sacrifices himself to buy some time. And here, his faith becomes its own kind of power. Even the Oracle said no one could convince him otherwise. Morpheus believes in Neo, blindly, completely. That belief is what drives him to face Smith, even knowing it will almost certainly lead to his death. And while Morpheus' belief for freedom drives him to sacrifice himself, Cypher doubles down on illusion. It's not just betrayal, it's resignation. He's done suffering for the truth. While Morpheus is captured, Agent Smith reveals a bit more than just strategy. He also reveals disgust. Not just with the Resistance, but with humanity itself.
I hate this place. This zoo, this prison, this reality.
Smith calls humans a disease. He loathes being around them. But beneath his hatred is something more desperate. He wants out. The irony is sharp. Smith, an agent of the system, is just as trapped as the people plugged into the Matrix. He also wants to escape, but unlike Neo, who opens his mind and eventually lets go of his doubts and fears, Smith wants freedom through domination and destruction. And then there's this.
As soon as we started thinking for you, it really became our civilization.
This line is almost a prophecy at this point. The Matrix takes over not through war, but through surrender. When humans decide to stop thinking for themselves and allow the machines to think for them. In this way, it's not only about AI becoming smarter, it's about us becoming passive. Smith's monologue can even be read as a dark mirror to modern life. Someone stuck in a job they hate, repeating the same old days, constantly fantasizing about escaping. That's why we can almost empathize with him, which makes him a very efficient antagonist.
That's why I have to go.
Why?
Because I believe in something.
What?
I believe I can bring him back.
The entire sequence of Neo and Trinity rescuing Morpheus has some of the coolest action sequences ever put to film, iconic for a reason. But beneath the bullets, something deeper is happening. Neo begins to walk the path. He's beginning to internalize the truth that the limits he once believed in were never real. And that belief, more than anything else, is what begins to set him free. He's still not fully awake, but this is the moment the true shift begins. He's no longer a passenger in his story. He's taking control by believing in himself.
There's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path.
That line hits harder now than ever. We live in an age where knowledge is everywhere. Books, motivational videos, endless podcasts, but execution, that's rare. Neo knew the theory, but it wasn't until he acted that the transformation truly began. In the subway fight with Smith, Neo stops running. He turns around, not because he's certain he will win, but because he's no longer afraid to try. Moments later, he dies, but it's only in death and completely letting go of who he was that he's finally completely reborn. This time, fully awake. He can now see the code. He no longer has to dodge bullets. He can move through the Matrix completely freely, molding it to his will, like it's clay in his hands. And finally, Neo calls his shot. He ends the movie not with violence, but with clarity, telling the machines and us exactly what's coming. Once we stop playing by the rules of fear and control, and once we start believing in terms of possibilities instead of limitations, anything is possible. The Matrix isn't just a prison, it's a mirror, a reflection of our own reality. And when we decide to stop obeying and start believing, we bend the world to our will. The choice won't be easy, but it's yours.
This realization that the Matrix was a false reality created by our limiting beliefs and false thinking helped me to retroactively understand my awakening experience in the park, which was characterized by a heavenly outer world where everyone seemed to be an angel and all of my dreams came true, and an equally heavenly inner world of ongoing, unconditional peace, joy, and love, what some people call enlightenment. I realized that the only reason I experienced quote-unquote enlightenment in the park was because, by the grace of God, from the moment I woke up, no pun intended, under that tree, my false thoughts and limiting beliefs about who I was, where I was, and why I was here had been completely removed, along with the unconscious compulsive thinking of my monkey mind. And in the interior stillness and silence of simply being here, now, that was left behind, there was quite literally no time for beliefs about anything. And without the experience of time, there was no sense of lack. And so, no compulsive, restless need to think about anything, or to judge anything, or to analyze anything, or to interpret anything, or to tell stories about anything, or to commentate about anything, or to even form an opinion about anything. There was no need for the monkey mind whatsoever, because in the present moment, where time is replaced by eternity, there is literally no time or space for a separate, egoic me to believe or think about anything. There is simply the knowing of the self, the universal I am that is shared by all beings. It was this, admittedly temporary, it wore off when I left the park, but nevertheless life-changing experience of the ultimate reality that lies beyond the false reality of the matrix we create with our false thinking and limiting beliefs that has informed, motivated, and inspired the past 23 years of my life. primarily in my desire to return to that enlightened state, mission accomplished, but also to help others to escape the matrix of false thinking and limiting beliefs and to experience the heavenly reality of who they really are, where they really are, and why they are really here. That mission is ongoing and takes the form of The Only Way Out is In, the Hero's Journey Brotherhood, and the 10 Million Christs Project. I invite you to make full use of The Only Way Out is In as my free offering that is accessible to all. And I invite those of you whose souls are calling them to master their limiting beliefs and their false thinking so that they can escape the matrix of human suffering by developing the ability to consciously create a heavenly reality for themselves that will eventually join with the heavenly realities created by 10 million other heroes of humanity, thus bringing heaven to earth. I invite you to join the Hero's Journey Brotherhood, my self-mastery mentoring mastermind, and the mission of the 10 Million Christs Project.
Stop complaining about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't put in. The only way to become more successful than most people is to be willing to do something most people aren't willing to do.
God, we should walk away from this.
Hold on. If I were to do this, if I even could do it, I'd need a guarantee. How do I know you can deliver?
You don't. But I can. So, do you want to take a leap of faith? Or become an old man, filled with regret, waiting to die alone?